Hello and welcome. I am Kim Keen, host of the One of a Kind You podcast. I started this podcast to share my journey with my past self, a woman who was struggling with leaving her teaching career and adjusting to stay-at-home mom life, to help other women with their motherhood journeys or their work-life balance journeys so they can let go and make themselves a priority without all the sacrificing. And if you are a regular listener to One of a Kind You, thank you so much for tuning into another episode. I'm so grateful that you're joining us. And if you're new, welcome to you too. I'm equally excited to have you here as well. And thank you for checking it out to see what we have to offer here at One of a Kind You. The way that this podcast usually works is I share a journal entry of mine from about 6 or 7 years ago, and I reflect on what I know now and what I wish I knew in the thick of the struggle. But ladies, today you do not have to listen to me blab away like a talking head. We have a wonderful guest with us. Her name is Rachel, and she is an author, and she is focused on loving your body just as it is. And she has a book, and I love the name of her book because donuts are one of my most favorite things in this world. Her book is called Donut Diaries. And so she shares her story of having no self-love for herself or her body. And I know that's something that many women can relate to, especially me. And she shares how she's gone from one diet to the next, gaining and losing. And now she's finally figured out how to stop betraying herself and actually feel confident and comfortable in her own skin. So Rachel can do a much better job of introducing herself, and she's going to fill in all of the things that I missed about her. So Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kim. And I feel like you did a great job of introducing me.
Oh, good, thanks.
I think the only thing that you left out was I have been in the fitness industry for over 20 years. I started off in classes, morphed into a personal trainer, which I've been doing for 20 years. But during the pandemic, I decided that it was time to stop talking about writing a book and actually do it.
Love it.
It was the perfect time, no interruptions.
Yes.
It was a long year. It took me many rewrites, but then I got it out into the world in 2021. And I am just out there spreading my, like you said, my message of self-love, self-acceptance, body love. But I'm also sharing my message of how important it is that we take care of our bodies. I think the misconception when people are now hearing, or even years ago hearing body positivity, they're like, oh, does that mean I can eat whatever I want and not move and just give up? Well, I'm not suggesting that, of course not, but I'm also not suggesting that you live your life obsessing over what the scale says or how your body looks in photos. And I know all of that can be tough. And like you mentioned, every single woman has had a moment or many moments in that space.
Yeah. So first of all, congratulations on getting your book published. That's a huge accomplishment. And so I'm like, I'm going to buy it and read it because my mom has struggled with her weight and her body image for her whole life. And so I think without realizing it, she then projected body image issues onto me where I haven't necessarily struggled with my weight. So it's this constant fear of like, oh my gosh, what if I can't keep a handle on my weight? And, and then after having children, my body did not look the same as it did before kids. So that was like a whole nother mental readjustment, and accepting the stretch marks and all of that comes with having kids. So that was, for me growing up and being so focused on what does my body look like? I can wear, can I wear a bikini? Can I wear short shorts? Can I wear a belly shirt? Like all of those things. And then you're like, okay, you're in a different stage of life and your body has changed, and coming to grips with that. So it's interesting how, family dynamics plays into it, society dynamics plays into it, social media, all of these things. And sometimes we don't even know we're under the influence.
Right. You're absolutely right about all those things. And just like listening to you describe, I mean, I'm sure all that was going on in your head every single day. It doesn't sound like you got a break from it whatsoever.
No.
And I remember that too, and I'm, into it enough that I can actually say, finally, I can have a day or a week where I don't think about my body. I still
Yeah.
have my moments. I would, I don't want to tote that I'm completely never have a negative thought again,
Yeah.
but I've built up an arsenal of positive things to say to myself, or, positive affirmations or positive things that I get to turn that around fairly quickly, which is good, but they still happen. I'm not going to
Yes.
lie.
Yes. And I've moved through, so it doesn't have the weight that it used to have. But again, that took a lot of work and um, self-acceptance and self-realization and all of these things. And when you're in the thick of it, it can feel really almost impossible to be able to get to the other side of it.
You are so right about that. I remember, there were days where I would just not even want to go out into the world because I just did not feel comfortable in my own skin. And
Hmm.
thank goodness those days are over. Even when I do have a moment of like, I just don't like the way I feel today or the way I look today, but that's not going to stop me from living my life anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, which is incredible because we only get one shot at it. So making the most of all of it, even when things don't necessarily feel like sunshine and rainbows.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Rachel, if you don't mind, take us back to, I'll say, the beginning of the journey. And what propelled you to, well, I don't know if this is necessarily the beginning, but what propelled you into the fitness industry, and becoming a personal trainer? Was it the struggles that you were having with your own body image?
It was partially. I know that I've always wanted to kind of be a part of that world. I have always been involved in dance and ice skating and swimming. So I was always a very active person. That was never my issue. My issue was, the weight. My body is the type of body where I need to move and
Hmm.
I need to, and if I do stop that for any length of time, my body responds in kind. And just like it responds in kind when I'm active and I'm feeling good and all those things. So when I decided to, how do I start the story? So I just kind of was married very young, moved to the Northwest very young, didn't really have a purpose. And then I got a job with the company Bowflex. And I'm sure that's like a
Yes.
black pass for everybody.
Yes.
And I just remember sitting in the call center and kind of listening to the advice, I'm using air quotes, that people were giving on how to work out. And I just felt like that didn't sound right.
Hmm.
And so, things were kind of changing in my life. And I found this program at Portland Community College. It was the fitness technology program, which was basically getting you ready for your personal trainer exam. But you had to take classes, core classes like fit exercise physiology, weight. I mean, it was just all encompassing and it was great. And the minute I started that program, I like, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I never looked back.
Wow, that's incredible. So so when you first started, were you teaching group classes and then you switched over to personal training?
Yes, I'm really going to date myself now. And I started my career as a jazzercise
Ah, I
instructor.
love
And
jazzercise.
then I know, I love that it's still around, right? And then I got ACE certified as a group X. So I was able to teach up, any class you can think of, I'm sure I've taught it. And then in 2007, when I decided I was going to go for the dream big time and move to Manhattan, I focused solely on personal training.
Wow. So you left Portland and came all the way back across the
Yes.
country to be in Manhattan to do personal training work.
Yeah, I grew up on the West Coast and I felt like I could move to LA or I can move to New York City. And I lived in California most of my life and I thought, why not? Let's take a chance. And I ended up staying in New York for almost 15, 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a great time. It was a great learning lesson. I feel like I really kind of grasped who I was living
Hmm.
there. It really forces you to grow up and be an adult. So I think that I mean, I moved to New York late in life. I didn't I wasn't sure if your listeners gathered that I got married very young, went back to school a little bit later. So I didn't even move to New York till my mid 30s. And
Really?
that was probably oh yeah, that was the right time, because I think if I moved there any younger, New
Hmm.
York would have like chewed me out for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because New York can do that to you even in your mid 30s. So like you have to go there with a very clear purpose because it can happen to the best of us.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. There was definitely a lot of tears those first few months of living there. Just the adjustment of moving to a big city like that. It was just a big shock for sure. But
Yeah.
then I
So
ended up just, loving every minute of it.
yeah. So I'm the very much the country mouse that goes to visit the city mouse. And I was like, okay, can you get me out of here now? Because I need to go back to country mouse life. So I love visiting for just a very short period of time. So the fact that you live there for 15 years, I am mind blown.
Well, where I live now in Greenville, South Carolina, it's a definite shift. It's nothing like New York.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. So you've gone from all different extremes, from West Coast, East Coast, the Southeast,
Mm-hmm.
so all over.
All over. Well, hopefully this is my last stop for a while.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us more about your book.
Okay. What would you like to know?
So what inspired you to write it? Is it like a memoir? Is it like what is it? Just tell us about it.
It's definitely my journey of
Hmm.
having these experiences for 4 decades of my life. Just, like you mentioned in my intro, I've been on every diet you can imagine. I have lost and gained weight more times than I can count. And I just always remember feeling two things. And one was just always betrayed by my body. And
Hmm.
two was why can't I have a body like you or like her? Or how come I don't look like her? And I just, secretly lived those feelings my whole life, even though I was a fitness professional and I was, trying to live my best life. It just always kind of was there in the pit of my stomach. And I started hearing about things like health at every size and intuitive eating. And I started reading about it. And I don't know, and I'm so sorry, but I forgot the name of the book, but it was written by a Dr. Lindo Bacon.
Hmm.
And I listened to the book, and they were breaking it down of how like doing all these diets really affect your body in a scientific way
Hmm.
and really knock women out of homeostasis, because we're always restricting, we're always taking some nutrient that we need out of our diet, i.e. fats, olive oil, avocados, whatever. And I just decided that after turning 40, enough was enough already. I wanted to truly be happy. I wanted to feel like I could be happy and not worry about what diet I was on or what my body looked like. And I'm 51 now, so this has definitely been a journey,
Hmm.
but I feel so much happier. I feel so much freer. I feel so much better most of the day.
Yeah.
There are moments I don't ever want to come across that I got it all figured out and I've got it all handled, because that's not true. This was something I lived with for 40 years. It's going
Yeah.
to take some time to shift that mindset. But that's what I like to call it. It was a shift in mindset. And I really wanted to share my story because I didn't want women to feel alone anymore.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think we so easily put ourselves in the I'm the only one trap,
Mm.
which creates this false sense of loneliness. It's like, no, you are not the only one. Probably 90% of women are experiencing the same thing as you. But we, and I say we collectively, like I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, but I should say um, I never wanted to tell people when I was struggling. That is something I kept so close to, like the cards, like no one can see it. Not so much with my weight or my body image, but like even when I was struggling with anxiety and going through therapy and, adjusting to life outside of my career that I thought I would have until I was 90, no one knew I was going to therapy. No one knew I was, struggling with the labels that the therapist had given me. and was pressuring me to take medication that I didn't want to take. No one knew. My husband knew and one close friend, and that was it. Because I thought, oh God, if someone finds out, that's it. Like they're gonna look at me like I'm a completely like a nutball, and they're gonna think I'm completely incapable, and they're just gonna cut me off, and I'm gonna be even more alone than I already think I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if that's something that you related to with as well. Like you didn't want to out yourself, so to speak, because that's vulnerable, and then it leaves you open for other people's opinions and feedback and judgments and things like that.
I absolutely relate to you. I mean, I would go as far as like sneaking food because I didn't want my clients or anyone I worked with to see me eat something so horrible. I mean, so I totally get it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's like we're humans, so we need food to survive. So, and they were also probably doing the same thing, sneaking the food because they didn't want you to see them eating, but we don't even that doesn't even register in our brains when we're going through it.
Right. You are so right. And a lot of times, when you work in this industry, there are a lot of people who have no idea what it's like to struggle. They've never been overweight or had an extra pound in their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that's true for every personal trainer or group X person, but it is a true fact that there are people in this industry like that. So their judging eyes,
Mm-hmm.
I also too, again, completely understand the whole therapy and going to therapy to heal from all that trauma, but just to say a realistic fact, I was told many times throughout my career that I didn't have the right body to be a personal trainer. Many times.
Which is insane.
It
It's
is
insane.
insane.
Because you would think that they would want people who I'll say have normal air quoting body types, not the, perfection bodybuilder, professional weightlifter type, because most people don't look like that. So you would think that in the industry, if you have a gym or you have personal trainers working at your facility, you would want people that look like normal people so that it draws people in and they feel comfortable to come.
Well, that's what we're seeing now is that, I have a beautiful arsenal of women in all the aspects of fit, wellness. And that's where the gap is because people, you're saying normal people, but people that have, whatever, we don't need to go in there, but people don't feel comfortable going into the gym or going into classes because they immediately assume they're going to be shamed. So
Yeah.
there's a whole market of men and women out there that aren't nourishing their bodies and getting the exercise that they probably really want because they just don't want to deal with that. So that is one of the parts of my movement that I'm trying to get out in the world is that we are aware, we're creating a safe space for you to come into a studio or a gym or wherever you want a class, wherever you want to find your happy place and move your body and not feel like you're going to be shamed or put on a diet because women and men come in bigger bodies. That's just a fact. And we need to accept that and we need to help them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And that was one of the things that I really resonated with in your message when you reached out was that you really want to, I'll say, normalize health and wellness for all people. Since there is this, I'll say, air quoting stigma or perceived image of what a health and wellness professional should look like or how they should, train and things like that. And it's really discouraging. And I know, so my husband is very fit and he was heavy for a short period of time in his early teens. So sitting around all summer eating M&Ms and playing video games, he gained weight. And then he didn't want to start high school and be the quote unquote chubby or the fat kid at school. So the summer going into freshman year, he said to his dad, like, I want weights and I want to start working out. And my father-in-law is very active. So he would, jumped right on it and gave my husband all the tools and knowledge and things that he needed. And now 30 years later, my husband is still very active and fit. And I am the person who struggles because I say I'm out of shape because I don't work out regularly. And so, sometimes my husband falls in the trap. He's like, well, it's not hard. It's easy. I'll show you what to do. And the things that are easy and not hard for him, I'm like, I'm dying here. I'm literally not going to be able to walk for a week. No,
Yeah.
thank you. And so because it's uncomfortable at first, I'm like, yep, all done, not doing it. But I know that that's bad, especially as I get older, because I'm like, I don't want to lose bone density and things like that. So I appreciate, what you're trying to accomplish, because for people like me who are beginning a workout journey, so to speak, if that's what you want to call it feels insurmountable at times.
I hear you. And I do appreciate what you're saying. My advice to you would be this. You should never take exercise advice from a dude. It's just,
Right.
especially a person who's been doing it like your husband for a long time.
Yeah.
And in his mind, this is easy. You go to the
Yeah.
gym, you do this, and that. You lift this amount of weight, and then you're done.
Yeah.
But especially for a woman, and I mean, I can't see your body over the screen, but you look pretty petite to me.
I am.
So, okay. So I can only imagine that his 25 pounds is impossible for you to lift,
Yes.
and it doesn't make you a wuss that you're only lifting 5 to 10 pounds right now. You will get stronger. I think that it's important to find yourself a person who you can trust and who's going to start you at the beginning. There's nothing wrong with starting at the
Yeah.
beginning and work your way up to wherever you want to be.
Yeah.
So maybe find yourself a female.
Yeah. So I use 3 pound hand weights, if that gives you any indication about. So I joke and say that I have chicken wings, and he's good. He'll say, like, just use 3 pounds and do this. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I don't even know what word you're using. So so you have to explain it to me first. So then I'm like, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm just not doing this. I'll just figure it out. And so then, months go by. I'm like, well, I haven't really figured it out. So back to the drawing board I go. So I think it's great that you are on this mission to help women, because I feel like it's kind of a male-centered universe. There are lots of female trainers. There are lots of classes, like if you go to the Y or something like that, there are lots of, like, I'll say, air quoting, female classes that aren't necessarily so masculine energy, like, oh, get in there and lift those weights. But even still, that can be a bit intimidating to go to if you've never done it before, because then you go and you're like, well, I don't, everybody's going to know it's my first time and I don't want to make a mistake and look silly. So yeah, the struggle is real. So if for someone like me who's just beginning, what do we do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's why I think the interesting shift in the pandemic that, you can do this virtually is
Hmm.
so amazing, because somebody wherever you are or in another state can hire me and we can go through the movements together. Because I truly believe that it's important to show someone in the beginning stages, like, today we're working your bicep, and I actually palpate that part of the body for them, or I touch my own body and say, this is what that means. Or working our quad, and I touch that part of my body, so there's that mind body connection that, some person is just going to throw you in a gym like, oh, we're going to deadlift today. And like you said, you don't have any clue what that word means,
Yeah.
other than you're not going to be able to walk for a week. Right.
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with taking that initial session and talking and having a conversation, because, you may not want to ever lift really heavy,
Hmm.
but you do have to understand that lifting 12, 15, 20 pounds is beneficial for your muscles and your bones as well. So
Hmm.
where can we meet in the middle? Where can I give you a workout that's going to help you, but where are you going to feel seen and heard, so we create a trust? And that's what I'm really, and I also try to educate. I do a lot of webinars for fitness professionals, because it's time we start having that conversation, because so many of them just are still doing those cookie cutter workouts, and they're not taking any of this into consideration. So I've got a lot of work to do.
Yes, but you are the perfect person for the job. So I have another question for you. So many moons ago, in one of my enthusiastic turns of, I'm going to do this, I found a personal trainer through Groupon who was local, and went, and I was like, I want to be, I guess perhaps I didn't describe what my goal was very accurately. So I was like, I want to be lean and increase flexibility, because I feel like I have the flexibility of my grandmother. And and I want to be more toned. And so it was a female, and she gave me this horrific diet plan and these exercises that I literally thought I was going to vomit after like the first three, I guess it's reps or whatever. And I was like, this is awful. So my diet plan that she gave me was literally the size of a dinner plate, and I had to fill it with chicken, quinoa, and broccoli, and that was all I could have for dinner. And I am the person who I cannot eat the same thing every single day. I don't like leftovers. Thank God my husband doesn't mind them, so we don't waste food. But I do not like eating the same things over and over and over and over. And it got to the point where I was like literally gagging this chicken and rice and couscous or quinoa or whatever it was down. And I was like pleading with her,
Yeah.
please let me eat something else. And meanwhile, she was out boozing it up with like a weekend away in New York City. And I'm like, you're not even eating this horrible food. Like, I like some chicken, I like some broccoli, I like some quinoa, but not every day and not enough to fill a dinner plate. Like, that is just way too much food for me. And then she allowed me to have the bread thins with
Yeah.
like to make like homemade pizzas with some marinara sauce and some vegan cheese. That wasn't even real cheese. And that was also equally disgusting. So needless to say, after 2 weeks, I was like, we're all done. I quit. I'm waving the white flag and I'm calling it quits because I can't do this.
Yeah. And I'm sure, unfortunately for that, I hope she has evolved, but I'm sure that happened to her a lot because that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Unless you are literally living that muscle bodybuilder or fitness model life and you have to eat like that to prep for a show, there is no reason that normal human beings should live like that. It's torture.
Yeah.
It's torture and it's stupid.
Right? Amen to that. So I'm like, oh, so when you work with someone and you create an exercise plan for them, do you also help them with the diet aspect too?
I don't anymore because I realize that's not my area of expertise.
Uh-huh.
It's really not in my code of ethics and my personal training certification. And I really have no desire to go back to school. So I do not, I mean, I can answer questions like, obviously, if someone says, I can't eat fat. And I say, well, what do you mean by that? Because a lot of people just, they see fat-free, sugar-free, and they think it's healthy. And I do try to tell people the more you eat something that comes from this earth, as opposed to in a box or a package, and please, I'm not judging because, hello, I still eat chips from a bag too.
Yeah.
But my diet consists of whole foods, whole grains, whole meats, salads, vegetables, fruits. I eat a rainbow. And I have a picture in my presentations of a rainbow of every color of food. And I love that picture because I don't think that people see food that way. It's beautiful. Food is beautiful. But if you live your life in this box of fear, like I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat that, then you just don't know. You just don't know. So I hope to educate people in that way, but I do not design meal plans anymore. No.
Perfect. So that's good. And I think too, that gives the person that you're working with flexibility and they can ask you questions. But I think on some level, it's somewhat trial and error. But if you take the approach of, and let's face it, we're Americans, we eat processed foods. It is the nature of the beast. So I just, I try when I make my own food, I try to do it in moderation, like I just recently gave up sweet treats, and my goal is to only have sweet treats on a full moon for the entire year.
A what?
Sweet treats.
Oh, you mean just in general, sweet treat? I thought it was a thing.
Oh, no. Like just in general sweets, like no cookies, no candy, no cake, no ice cream, none of that. Only on the night of a full moon, just to see if I can do it for a whole year. So I started January 16th, and so far, check, I'm doing it. But I said to my husband when we go away on vacation this summer, I was like, yeah, that rule is going to have to go out of the window for the week that we're on vacation because I'm not sacrificing good vacation food for that challenge. So again, there's flexibility there. I'm not like, super strict about it, but it was just something I could do to challenge myself because it was getting to the point where I was like, I'll have an Oreo cookie at 8:30 in the morning. Sure, why not? Like, that's a good idea. So I was like, okay, we need to reel it in with the sugar and the candy and the cookies and all the things. So just a little personal challenge. So far, it hasn't been as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
But again, it's just, everything is in moderation. The more we restrict, like you mentioned earlier, the more we tend to want it. And then it gets us all out of whack with hormones and things like that because our body, is a little well-oiled machine and we go tinkering too much, it gets out of balance.
Well, one thing that you made me real or think about when you were just telling me that story is that I don't think that people realize how, and from day to day, from week to week, from year to year, our tastes change
Mm-hmm.
and our hunger changes. I don't know if you've ever paid attention, but there can be a full week where you literally, I'm just not hungry. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just not. And then next month you have a week or a day where you're like, I cannot hoover enough food.
Right.
And I think that, it's your activity level,
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, your hormones, your if something's going on in your life, but it's a normal thing for our hunger to change. And I think so many people, they don't know that and they get so mad at themselves. Like, why am I hungry again? Why
Mm-hmm.
can't I just be full? And, two parts of that, what I just mentioned, but also too, if people aren't having nutrient dense foods that keep you full or your body really utilizes, then that could be an issue too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so ladies, get the book, Donut Diaries. I'm getting it. And we'll put the link in the show notes so you can just go right to the show notes, get the link, and get the book. And before we do that, Rachel, so let's just say that someone is listening and they're like me, where they're like, we know we need to make a change and we're just not really quite sure where to start. What would be your recommendation?
Take baby steps. Stop trying to do it all at once because you feel overwhelmed and then you just don't stick with it. Pick one thing. Are you going to start taking a walk every day? Are you going to maybe incorporate a new veggie into your life? Just pick one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just start small. But I will say to people, to women, what I love to do is make a list of foods that you actually don't like, not foods that you do like. Those are easy to pick from. Make a list of foods that you're just like, hard stop. Like, I can't, I don't even want to make it. I don't even want to deal with it. And then that way you realize it's a pretty short list, maybe for some people, I don't know. And then just stop worrying about, like, I know it's healthy, I should be eating it, but I can't, I just don't, whatever. So if you have this in your mind, you're like, I'm not going to force myself to eat kale because it's disgusting. How many other options do I have? And I just think that that is a little helpful tip that, we put so much pressure on ourselves. Just take one thing and implement that. And then when you're ready, implement a new thing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that really makes it so simplistic, but not like overly simple, like, oh, yeah, just, baby step in, just do one thing. It gives us the chance to do the one thing. We feel comfortable. It's part of our routine. It's a habit, so to speak. And then we're like, okay, I got this. Time to add something else. And so it's just giving ourselves permission to go slow and not try to do all the things at one time because that's what we like to do sometimes. And I say we, mostly me. Like it's like go
It's
big
not,
or go home.
it's not just you, it's all of us. We all do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So because we don't wanna because we don't know any other way. It's like if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it. There is no try, you do. And so
Mm.
we get stuck in that loop sometimes of like trying to take on too much with food and exercise and all of the health and well-being things that we're like, oh, this is really scary and overwhelming. I don't really like any of this, so I'm just gonna stop.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, Rachel, if someone is listening and they have a question, is it okay to reach out on social media or via email?
Yes, please. I love questions. You can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram, all under Rachel Lavin Wellness. You cannot miss me because I'm in every picture holding a copy of my book. So you'll know it's,
Perfect.
and my website is rachellavinwellness.com. And again, my contact information is on all of those platforms that we just talked about.
Perfect. So, and ladies, don't worry about doing the Google search thing and getting the name spelled right and all of that things, all the things. All of Rachel's information is going to be right in the show notes. So all you have to do is click the show notes and you'll have all the links right there. So you can just go straight to the source instead of trying to go about the roundabout way of finding her. So I hope that you found this episode helpful today, ladies. And Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your insight and your wisdom and your knowledge. It's been such a great time chatting with you.
You too. Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate your time as well.
Yeah, of course. So please feel free to share this episode with a friend because the more the merrier. And if you would be so kind to leave a review, I take the time to read all the reviews to ensure that this podcast continues to be a place of support and guidance and really a one-stop shop for all things related to women. So, because let's face it, ladies, we have to stick together. So thanks so much for tuning in to another episode and we will see you next week.